Yeah, a pretty sizable lead indeed. About 60% of the vote, and then Craig Haggard is trailing behind that. We're actually at a watch party. Craig Haggard is hosting a watch party here in District 4. Again, a very Republican led district, and things are still kind of trailing in. We got about 35% of the vote in, but we got Craig Haggard over here who's been keeping an eye on things. I know, Jim Baird's still in the lead. How are you feeling? I know things aren't necessarily looking up to at least too good for you right now.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, we knew when we started this that, I think the statistical chance is 2% against an incumbent. But at the end of the day, it's been a great experience. I've met people throughout the district. I've discovered places in Indiana. And whatever happens, that I will always treasure. So, either way, I'm running in 28, win or lose. And I guess we'll wait and see. At this point, it's in God's hands, and wherever I'm supposed to be, I'll be. And so I just can't say how thankful I am for all the people that have helped, that have chipped in, that have donated, that have, done everything for me. And we'll just have to wait to see. But either way, I'm fine with whatever happens. I'm just, proud to, still represent the people now and hopefully in the future, and it's not going to stop me whatever happens.
Yeah, and obviously there's been a record turnout for the primaries. What do you think is leading some folks to go to the polls? We've been hearing affordability. In the end, does it matter if, how many doors you knock on or what endorsements you get? What do you feel is the driving factor?
Well, I mean, affordability is a big, you go to the gas pump, it's, $5 a gallon, or in some places or close to that. So people are still seeing prices go up. I don't think they're happy with the status quo, which seems odd that they want to keep voting for the same thing and they'll get the same thing. But also I think the massive involvement in outside folks for the redistricting issue. We've already seen one prominent state senator go down, and there was a lot of money thrown into this state, and I think that brings out probably a lot of voters.
All right. Well, we'll be keeping an eye on some of those races coming in. Thank you again, Craig Haggard. So we're going to keep an eye on the race here in District 4, still leaning pretty heavily toward Jim Baird, about 35% of the vote in, but those remaining counties, several still have about 0% reporting, Dustin.
Alex, and Craig Haggard was talking about money coming in from out of state, an estimated $13.5 million in ad spending from outside interest groups. So that's virtually unheard of in a primary election here in Indiana. Quickly want to go over some new results just into the newsroom. State Senate District 1, the Republican primary with 34% of precincts reporting. The Trump-backed candidate, the Trump-backed challenger, Trevor DeVries, leading right now with 73% of the vote over the incumbent, Senator Dan Durnall. And also, walk with me over here. We have a projected winner in the Republican GOP primary for House District 7. Patrick McCauley with 85% of the vote, so it looks like he will face Democratic incumbent Congressman Andre Carson for the 7th seat in November. All right, now I want to send it into the studio and our panel with Anne Marie.
All right, Dustin, thanks so much. We've been talking about these candidates who are backed by Trump because of the position that they took about redistricting. And, we were talking here amongst the panelists, and they said, you keep saying 7, but actually, just kind of at the end, it became 8. So tell us a little bit about that, 8.
Well, they expanded it and included one more that they hadn't initially targeted with negative ads. So whether that means they think that they're going to win them all, I think they have to win them all, otherwise it's a defeat, frankly, with all the money they've spent on this. So it's hard to judge because, first of all, the numbers aren't coming in district by district as fast as you might want to see them, and the polls close later up north as well, so it makes a difference on how to figure it. But you've got to figure that if Trump has the same cachet in 2026 that he had in 2024, he ought to be able to sweep all of those races, and if he doesn't, it shows that his power is on the wane.
And that 8th candidate is Niemeyer?
Niemeyer. Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. So when we were looking at that and we saw DeVries 73%.
But but you don't know how many are
Yeah,
total
we don't know
yet.
what it is,
Yeah.
so it's hard to
Could
say.
be as a neighborhood.
Yeah, but maybe more interesting would be the difference in the percentages for Andre Carson when he had multiple challengers versus Victoria Spartz right now when she had just one.
Right.
So let's talk about that a little bit.
Well, I think it's pretty significant. He had 3 opponents, at least 2 of whom campaigned very hard and put out a lot of signs and worked the district. So it's not surprising that I think his margin's going to be somewhere in the mid-60s of the total vote he got, which is a pretty good showing considering the opponents that he had this time. Victoria Spartz, did you see much in Hamilton County for her opponent?
42%.
I know for her total, but did you see much of a presence of her campaign?
Signs and various other things.
Signs and things like that, you did?
I did not.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
I did not either.
and you didn't hear
I
her
live
name.
there.
You didn't hear her name in the press and all. So the fact that Victoria Spartz got less than 60% as an incumbent against a candidate who obviously wasn't as well known or didn't work as hard, that shows some vulnerability.
Robert?
They're both incumbents. They both won. I mean, 50%, 55, 60, all you got to win's by 1. Andre Carson probably got lower than he thought he would. Maybe Representative Spartz got lower than she thought she would. But in the end, what does it say? It says that people are willing to challenge incumbents in this atmosphere, which I think is very interesting. It's not the easiest thing in the world to challenge a congressional incumbent. Those people, you know, a lot of politicians have what we call Irish Alzheimer's, which means you forget everything but your grudges. And they take that stuff to the grave. There's still people.
I resent that Irish Alzheimer's.
It was told to me by Kevin Murray, who's
I don't
Irish,
care. So am I.
at the Golden Ace. It's a perfect place. My point is that it's a courageous act to go against these incumbents because they'll remember that you made them work harder, spend more money, made them be on shows like this talking to you, still have the same power. So, you know, as much as I would like to see more races like this, the kudos to some of these people who've challenged because it's tough to go against the establishment, however you define it.
Right, and Melissa, it's just right what you were saying. I mean, the incumbents have got the golden ticket when we're an incumbent here in this midterm.
Yeah, typically incumbents have a very strong advantage going into this. But I want to dwell on Victoria Spartz a little bit because everything in Indiana is about Hamilton County these days. So Victoria Spartz is in a very different district than Andre Carson. No matter who would win tonight among the primary challenges in the Democrat, I don't think anyone other than Democrat would win in the fall.
Correct.
For 7. But Victoria Spartz is interesting because she is representing a part of Indiana that's very lively politically. There's a lot of political change in Hamilton County, a lot of demographic change. We know when we were sitting here 2 years ago and 4 years ago that that's where all the interesting state house races were. And so if her race is competitive right now and she's running against J.D. Ford and there's a lot of energy, that's going to affect down ballot races in the fall. And I'm very interested to see what that will mean for Democrats and Republicans in November.
And the get out the vote effort
Yes.
from the Democrat candidate for Secretary of State, whoever that turns out to be.
Right. And I will say the presence of primary challenges is very interesting. It's a chance for candidates to get tested and to build up infrastructure. So I think it's generally a good thing if there are challenges, but especially interesting when that happens in Hamilton County.
Are you worried for Victoria?
She's going to have to work her tail off. I mean, like anybody else. Now, you know, J.D. Ford, I know him a little bit. I don't know him well. I have a positive opinion of him, so I couldn't speak to his strength or vulnerability in that race. But, you know, if the Democrats truly think they can win the Secretary of State's race and they raise enough money and they have enough enthusiasm, then that can only be good news for J.D. Ford. Will we have the same as Republicans in that district? You know, one of the things that I learned in politics very early is motive. What motivates people to get out and vote, leave their house, leave their work or whatever? And to me, it's going to be interesting. I think that Victoria is having an increasingly difficult time motivating her voters. The D's are not going to have that problem with J.D. Ford. But again, it's like Dan Burton. This is the year he's going to lose. They can't, not again. No more Dan Burton. He won every time. She's undefeated. She's undefeated for a reason.
But this is
Where is she vulnerable?
But this is the first time that there is no president, governor, or U.S. senator on the ballot. So Secretary of State has a huge impact in this race. And J.D. Ford will work extremely hard and raise the money. And that's something she's not done. I mean, she's an incumbent. That gives her an advantage, certainly. But is she going to walk that district? Is she going to do what needs to be done to win? I don't think so.
I keep getting told she's not going to win, and she keeps winning.
Well, I mean, she's coasted before because she's been on the ballot when Trump was on the ballot, too.
And when he's not been on the ballot.
Do you think it
Yeah,
hurts
but
her
not
that
without the
she
Secretary of
said
State.
maybe that she wasn't going to run and then she did run?
You think
or
that
do you think that you think that resonates more, or the fact that there were times that she didn't go along with the party?
If it didn't hurt her against Goodrich, it's not going to hurt her. I mean, that was the time.
It certainly is not going to hurt her in the primary. But there are other things that will hurt her in the general election besides that.
Where do you think she's weak?
I think she's weak because she identifies completely with Trump and with Putin, which I think is a liability for her among most Indiana voters, or at least in parts of that district. Yeah. And if JD can convince them that he is the spokesperson who's going to talk about what's really important to those voters and how to address the problems of housing shortages and sending your kids to college and having enough money for education, and she's been in and hasn't done it, I think that's a pretty compelling message.
Outside of Marion County and Lake County, when you look around, what is the county that the Democrats, would you say it's Hamilton County?
Oh, I think there's obviously, because not simply because it's exciting, but it's growing. Yeah. It's growing in a huge fashion. So yeah, I think it's definitely a factor, and I expect to have more wins up there.
And the demographics in Hamilton County are changing.
Yes, I think this is a really big part of the story here. It is becoming more racially diverse. You have a huge immigrant population there. This is a population that's quite unhappy with the aggressive immigration policies of the Trump administration. You have a lot of well-educated white suburban women who are also unhappy with very social policies advanced by the Trump administration. So I think Victoria Sparks' greatest liability is the fact that she is a Republican at this point.
And a Trump Republican.
A Trump Republican, thank you. What Democrats have in their favor is that people are mad and they're energized, and we're also seeing a lot of infrastructure built among Democrats in Hamilton County that will serve them well, and that they've been building intentionally over the past few years. So I think there's a lot to watch there.
And when we're talking about diversity in Hamilton County, it also it includes religion.
Yes, yes. There's a huge Muslim population in Hamilton County, especially Fishers, South Asian population, Arab American population. And so it means that the conversation about what America looks like is different now in Hamilton County, as it is across all of America. So I think this election tonight, in many ways, is an election about very local small issues. It's about things as local as, is there going to be a data center built in my backyard, or will there be leak wastewater dumped in the reservoir? These are things that people care about. But they're also caring about big picture questions like, can I afford to provide for my family? Will I feel safe in this country? Is this a place where I feel welcome and where my ability to practice my faith is affirmed? These are questions that are also sitting with people right now and weighing heavily on people's hearts and minds.
You know, it's interesting as we followed a lot, we brought up data centers, and it just reminds me, we just saw a pretty good activation for the Martindale-Brightwood area. I mean, people really coming out and voicing and protesting and working with the media and trying to say, not in my backyard. And they were not successful. And sometimes I wonder when it's like you do galvanize and you do energize and you think, I'm going to go out and I'm going to vote, or I'm going to speak out, or I'm going to do something, and then it doesn't go in your favor. Is there this disenfranchisement then that follows, or do they keep coming back?
But you can even lose on the question of whether there's a data center there and still win on certain things. I mean, is that going to drive up even higher the cost of our utilities, our water usage? All of those things can be addressed in a way that can have a compromise, because, you know, they don't create jobs, or they don't create many jobs, and the Republican administration has poured huge incentives into those operations, so that there's not going to be a tremendous benefit in many locations for having them there, because they're going to get an abatement of property taxes. They're not going to have to pay income taxes. I mean, if the need is there and they're going to come here anyway, why are we spending hundreds of millions of dollars in incentives? Let them come and then regulate what that means for our utility rates and regulate what that does to our water supply, and then take the benefit from the resources that'll come in here in the terms of money. You know, I mean, there are ways to win without actually shutting it down, is what I'm trying to say.
I work for Google, so there's my disclosure. But they're not the Martindale Brightwood data center. I think Ron Gibson is a profile and courage for fighting for that data center. Data centers are obviously, you know, on the radar, in the crosshairs. There's still a lot to be discussed about them. I'm a fan, and I was a fan before I was paid to be a fan. But her point, both of their points, I think, is valid in the sense of you have access to more news than you've ever had. So you're reading things about international affairs and national affairs that you never read. You used to have a subscription to the New York Times, right, or the Washington Post. So voters are more informed. I don't know they're as motivated. Victoria's going to have to motivate them. She's always seen as vulnerable. She always wins. Hamilton County's always turning blue. It's deja vu all over again. It's still solidly Republican, not completely Republican, but if I was running as a Republican, Hamilton County's where I'd want to run. I don't have any problem with that. I just think all these predictions keep happening, but they don't come to fruition. So at a certain point, they either have to happen or come up with a new strategy.
Well, we do have some results that are just coming in now. NBC, a projection that Greg Walker will lose his seat to Michelle Davis. So what's your thoughts on this?
Well, I mean, that's one that Trump won. I mean, I saw some of the ads for that, and they were vicious. They were really vicious. And the question then is, what happens in that district in the fall? You know, the way that he was attacked by a woman whose only qualification, as far as I could tell, was that Trump blessed her. You know, it may not be enough to motivate people to come out and vote for her in the fall.
Melissa?
I continue to wonder how important endorsements are. I think we've seen some races where the endorsement of Trump mattered and others where it didn't. Maybe what matters more is the infusion of money to create these ads that can be blistering in their attacks. I will have to say he took a principled stand against redistricting. I think Hoosiers recognize that. And it was also a controversial stance, clearly. So I'm curious to see how other people like him fare across the state.
Trump has got a lot of juice in this state, and I wouldn't be surprised if he won 7 or 8 of the 9. By him, I mean his people.
Who's the 9th?
You said there were
8. 7 to 8.
7 to 8.
Yeah.
I don't think he has to win them all. If he wins 7 out of 8, that's 87%. That's pretty good. My biggest worry as a Hoosier, I'm a gigantic, unrequited fan of Rod Bray. I want Rod Bray to stay as majority leader, just like I want Todd Houston, who's fabulous, to stay as Speaker of the House. So some of these seats, if they turn, it may not mean so much, but if they form a coalition to change leadership in the House and Senate, that will matter greatly.
Well, that's the goal. That's the goal.
I know,
Get
that's why I
Bray
brought it
out.
up. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That will be a huge change,
And
for sure.
we'll put someone that's to the right of Attila the Hun in instead. It's not very encouraging for the state of Indiana.
I didn't know him, did you?
Oh, he's one of your caucus.
Is he? I didn't know it.
All right, we're going to leave it there for now. We have much more analysis and results coming up tonight in our live coverage here on WTHR Plus right after this.
Welcome back to our primary election night coverage here on WTHR Plus. NBC News is projecting another Trump-endorsed challenger to take the seat. State Senate District 41 right here. Challenger Michelle Davis with 59% of the vote to the incumbent Greg Walker, and 89% of precincts reporting. Again, Michelle Davis projected by NBC News to unseat Greg Walker and move ahead into the November general election. You may remember, for those who've been following, Greg Walker initially said he was not going to run, then eventually decided he would run. And Michelle Davis was a House lawmaker. In fact, she was vice chair of the House Education Committee and is moving to switch seats right now. So this is kind of the scoreboard for the redistricting fallout, if you will. The senators here in Indiana who voted against congressional redistricting and were challenged by Trump supported candidates. Of note, Blake Fichter has unseated longtime Senator Travis Holdman in District 19. Holdman had been in that seat for nearly 20 years. And then District 21, right now with 56% of precincts reporting, challenger Tracy Powell with 63% of the vote over longtime incumbent James Buck, who's been in that seat since 1994. All right, let's talk about voter turnout. We know early voter turnout was massive compared to years past. So how did it go today? Jenny Runovich is live in Marion County with more on that. Hey, Jenny.
Hi, Dustin. This is really the nerve center where the votes are counted for Marion County, but it's the number of people who voted that really counts this election. So I want to share some numbers with you because engagement was clearly a big deal. There are 634,000 or so voters registered in Marion County. We had a 14.9% turnout for this primary in Marion County. Now, you may hear that number and think, 14.9%, that doesn't sound that great. Well, normally they tell me we're in the single digits in Marion County. So clearly a huge surge. There were almost 100,000 ballots cast when you combine in-person early voting and in-person on Election Day. And that's certainly encouraging to the people who run elections in Marion County. They say, you know, people clearly had something to say. They wanted their voices heard. So the ballots continue to be counted here. We're also, this is a big warehouse essentially. This is also where they're bringing back all the equipment from the previous, or those voting centers where you cast your ballot. And then I wanted to show you this just because I think it's cool. So here in the warehouse, they have a bunch of campaign signs from election days gone by. And when you look at the names, it's pretty cool. I mean, everything from Mitch Daniels to Frank O'Bannon to Marvin Scott, and it just goes on and on. And it's kind of cool that they put it up here, you know, from all political parties, just this is what it's all about. The candidates who are passionate about something for their community, and they kind of get to live on this wall. This place, by the way, isn't going to be here much longer for Marion County as far as the election board. They're going to be moving soon, so they will have a new location a little bit down the street. So that's it from here at the Election Services Center. We'll have much more after the break.
Voters are very engaged this election, and they are determined to have their voice heard.
Haven't missed a one. Well, I'm 85, and I've voted in every one of them since I was 21.
And then we're going to need you to sign at the bottom.
A lot more people are energized. Yes, I'm going to go vote. And I'm like, in the midterms. Yeah, great.
It is just after 8:30 on primary election night. Good evening. Thanks for joining us for our special coverage here on WTHR Plus. I'm Dustin Grove in the Results Center. I want to take you over here and show you the smartboard here. U.S. House District 7, the Democratic primary, incumbent Congressman Andre Carson keeping his seat for now with 63% of the vote. He will face Patrick McCulley, who won the House 7th primary tonight with 85% of the vote. And our Emily Longnecker has been covering this race from the very beginning. She joins us live tonight from the Democratic headquarters in that district. Emily, good evening.
Good evening, Dustin. Yeah, you know, this has been kind of a smaller watch party tonight. None of the candidates were here. They were all watching the results come in from separate areas after being at polling places all day. But we just have some statements coming in from some of the candidates. First, let's go with incumbent Congressman Andre Carson. This is what he had to say. Tonight, I was honored to receive the backing of the people of Indiana's 7th Congressional District. Thanks to the power of people and prayer, we're one step closer to defeating attacks on our rights, our economy, and our democracy. I never take anything for granted, and I'm proud of the work we put into this race. Under Democratic leadership, the economy was strong, and more people than ever could afford health care. This November, Democrats have the chance to regain the House majority and build on the progress we started. This race has never been about me, it's always been about we. Marion County voters turned out because we believe in a future where no one struggles to buy groceries or pay their bills. We believe in a country that works for everyone, not just the ultra wealthy. We believe in fairness. We believe in welcoming our immigrant neighbors and stopping ICE's brutal attacks on our communities. This win belongs to the volunteers, activists, and voters who have never given up on the promise of our country. We also got a statement from Destiny Wells. She came in second tonight with over 20% of the vote. Here's what she had to say. Turnout is at record level for Congressional District 7 in a midterm. Contested races hold incumbents accountable. This is how democracy should work. She went on to say, little sparks can cause huge fires. I'm excited for Indy's future and the momentum built from those who engaged in this political season. We also reached out to George Tornado and Denise Paul Hatch. Denise Paul Hatch sent me a text back saying that she was in the middle of prayer and she would call me back with some thoughts. We're still waiting to hear from George Tornado, who came in with just 10% of the vote. Again, this was a smaller watch party tonight. These candidates, none of them were here. They were all watching from separate areas. But this was described as one of Congressman Carson's most significant primary challenges since he first ran for office in 2008. It looks like he is holding on to that seat in the primary heading to the general in November. Dustin?
Hey guys, hey Emily, I'm just getting in from NBC News that they are projecting that Ford is going to win the Democratic primary here in the 5th Congressional District, about 42.5% of the vote he has right now, with about 77% of all votes tallied. They are also currently projecting that Victoria Spartz, the incumbent for the Republicans, will win her primary as well. She's got about 60% of the vote right now over Scott King, with about 65% of the vote tallied there. So J.D. Ford against Victoria Spartz in the fall is what it's looking like, according to NBC News. And this was something that I think a lot of people were predicting tonight, that J.D. Ford would carry the Democratic primary over those 6 challengers tonight. He has the most political experience out of this group. He won his state Senate district back in 2018, actually managed to flip that from a long-held Republican seat. So a lot of people feeling like gives him good energy going into the fall, into the general election, that he has the chops to be able to beat a Republican in this district. So when we talk about whether or not this race is competitive, I was listening to our panelists and Anne-Marie talk about that earlier. I think now that you have the challenger against Victoria Spartz, you're really going to see how these two line up against each other. And J.D. Ford may be considered by some a little bit more of a moderate candidate than others. So a race we will be closely watching going into the fall. Destin, I know you're at the results board right now. Do you have a breakdown of the 5th district you can share with us?
Yeah, let's actually do that, Jenna. Thank you. So let's go to the 5th district here, and we've got the breakdown right here with 75% of precincts reporting J.D. Ford leading with 43% of the vote, Franklin 18, followed by Pickett with 14. So that's what it's looking like in the Democrats on the Democrat side. Republican side, Victoria Spartz 60%. To her challenger King with 40% and 63% of precincts reporting. We've also been covering this upset in State Senate District 21. The Trump-endorsed challenger Tracy Powell taking the seat from longtime incumbent Jim Buck. Again, this is District 21. And then we also got the Democratic primary results for that same district, and the winner there is Kirsten Root. So in November, Kirsten Root will face Tracy Powell in the general election. More results as they come in here on WTHR Plus on this election night. We'll take a break and be right back.
Welcome back to our live election coverage here from WTHR. And as we're starting to see some of these numbers come in, I want to ask our panelists, what kind of trends are you seeing, and what so far does this predict for you for the fall? Ann, we can start with you.
Well, I think it's going to be a question where the Trump endorsement was not a complete sweep, which after spending $13 million on these races, you'd expect. And they've created some really deep wounds in the Republican Party in these districts, which I don't think are going to close before November.
Yeah. Robert?
Well, and sympathy for the Republican Party is always very
Oh, I'm not
endearing.
sympathetic. I'm talking about opportunity for the Democrats.
It's always very heartfelt.
Yeah.
It sounds like self-destruction.
Well, here's something to look at, though. Who were the only incumbents who lost? The ones in which Trump participated. None of the other incumbents that I see, we haven't talked about a single other incumbent, not in that targeted 7 or 8 seats, who lost.
Did they
Right?
have opponents?
Exactly. So to say that Trump played and there's some sort of like his influence is waning, I just think it's way too early to say that. If the only time these candidates are going to lose, the incumbent senators, the only ones who lost are in the ones where Trump has put money and effort, that tells you something.
To get them
Tells you
out
that
in
money
retaliation.
has a very strong influence on that. And they can say anything in those ads and get away with it, and they did.
Melissa?
So the last time we had a midterm election here in Indiana, 2022, we had abysmal voter turnout. It was actually pretty shameful. We were worse than Kentucky, which is always very embarrassing. But the fact that we had much better voter turnout this year in a primary election compared to 2024 and 2022 is very encouraging. And that, to me, is a sign that there's energy, there is interest. I think a healthy democracy is one where people feel a sense of political efficacy, a sense that their vote matters. And if more people are showing up to vote, that is a good thing. And it means also that going into November, we might have a lot more participation. I hope substantive engagement in policy and not just mudslinging, but one can only hope.
Why'd you look at us?
Just generally.
Do you think
When
we
there's more
might climb?
engagement, everybody wins.
Yes, and yes.
So we might climb out of the basement and not be 49th or 50th in turnout, which has been the Republican goal for years.
Oh, God.
Isn't that wonderful?
Yeah, you've really worked hard at it.
But voter turnout, you're predicting based on, or you're projecting maybe,
Right.
looking forward that maybe some of this energy will continue.
Yes, I would say voter turnout and also engagement of American people in the political process, which means engagement going into Election Day. So the fact that, for example, there was a competitive race to see who would challenge Victoria Spartz, that infrastructure, that volunteerism that we see in Hamilton County and Boone County around this primary election, that will translate well for Democrats going into the fall. And I think that is an interesting thing to watch. I think people are energized right now, and that is the main story to me tonight.
And that work begins tomorrow. Yes, all right. We're going to take a break and be right back.
Welcome back to our primary election night coverage here on WTHR Plus. One of the themes tonight we've been watching is this political retribution and how much weight does a President Trump endorsement carry. There are 8 state Senate seats where President Trump has endorsed the challenger in one way or another because the incumbent voted against congressional redistricting. And we can tell you by our tally right now, based on the numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of those 8 have won or are winning. Okay, Michelle Davis, let's find Michelle Davis over here, Senate District 41, the challenger, beat incumbent Greg Walker. Over here we have, this is the exception, the incumbent Greg Good from the Terre Haute area. Longtime lawmaker in that area. He was able to keep his seat, hold on to his seat, at least for now, until the November general election, winning with 54% so far. And actually that race has been called or projected for Greg Good to win. State Senate District 23, this is in the Lafayette area. Paula Copenhaver currently leading over incumbent Spencer Deary. A lot of nasty attack ads on incumbent Spencer Deary the last couple of weeks by Trump-aligned interest groups supporting Paula Copenhaver, and Copenhaver is ahead right now with 54% of precincts reporting. Let's move over here. Incumbent Linda Rogers up in northern Indiana, Senate District 11, trailing challenger Brian Schmutzler, the Trump-endorsed candidate. 95% of precincts reporting, and Brian Schmutzler ahead with 59% of the vote. And it continues. State Senate District 1, Dan Durnall, the incumbent, right now trailing the Trump-endorsed candidate Trevor DeVries. 73% to 25%. Now let's walk over here. J.D. Ford has been projected the winner in the U.S. House District 5 Democratic primary. He had held on to that lead all night long, so not a huge surprise. He now officially projected to take that seat and take on Victoria Spartz in November. We'll take a break and have more coverage when we come back.
Hey, Dustin. Well, of course, I mean, the other big story that we are watching is all of these Republican state senators who voted against redistricting, many of them in trouble tonight, some of them officially losing their races, others falling behind. I'm joined by Democratic State Representative Ed Delaney. He was here at the Marion County Democratic Watch Party. Come on in, Representative Delaney. Thanks for being here. You know, you kind of came in and were asking, hey, what are some of the results? What do you think? Is this a sign of something bigger?
Well, it's concerning. It does prove that if you spend $9 or $10 million of out-of-state money, you can affect some elections. So we've seen that. Senator Buck lost, who's been in there a long time. Senator Rogers, who never offended anyone, she's losing. Greg Walker, who was seen to have a problem, is losing or lost. So Greg Good, who stood up and had a public town hall and stood up, he seems to be winning. Not by a huge amount, but he seems to be winning. So far, let's call them the haters, are doing well for them.
Let me ask you, a lot of these senators during this time when they made that vote against redistricting, they said they were listening to their constituents. So you see these voters now, is this a sign of voters holding them accountable now, or is this a sign of politics playing a bigger issue?
It's a problem of primary voting. Only those people who feel most committed to the party and who feel strongest, in this case, the most angry, turn out. So that's the problem with the primary system, and that's what's happening.
Is this a bigger sign of things to come for the senators who weren't up in this primary season, like President Pro Tem Rod Bray? He also voted against redistricting. He's going to be facing a primary here at some point.
Probably that will happen, but in the near term, we're going to have to decide who is the President Pro Tem. The biggest election this year will occur sometime in November after the regular election, when we decide who the President Pro Tem of the Senate is. And that's going to be a very interesting contest at this point. I hope Bray can stay strong because he's a moderate. There is some danger that the totally extremist types will take over the Senate Republican caucus, which was not very moderate to begin with. So I think that's the big risk right now.
Okay, Representative Ed Delaney, thank you so much for being here. So yeah, the other big story here tonight, really, these state senators who are losing in this primary after the president promised retribution for them voting against redistricting. Of course, let's talk about the congressional races, and I want to toss to my colleague Alex Alamanza, who's been covering the race for the 4th congressional district. Alex?
Hey there, Emily. NBC News is actually projecting that Jim Baird, the incumbent for District 4, he will be staying in Washington, D.C. Right now, we've got about half of the votes in, but again, NBC News projecting that Jim Baird wins the Indiana primary for District 4. We've got Craig Haggard here, who's been watching some of the results come in. Obviously, things have been kind of, nerves have been kind of racking up the past couple of hours. But you kind of came into this kind of knowing that this would definitely be a possibility.
Yeah, I mean, we knew from the beginning this was going to be an uphill battle. I know that the people, the informed individuals in the 4th, know that they're not represented properly, and that's why I got the endorsements. And, it's not the end of the road. It's not the end of the road, but I just really thank everybody that has given their time and their treasure, and I can't say enough how much I appreciate all the support I've received. It's humbling to get that support, and I'll always be grateful.
Yeah, and I understand you have an announcement to make in terms of next election.
Oh yeah, I'm not fanfare, not like my one in August, but yeah, I am officially going to be running for the 2028 primary for the same seat. I mean, what kind of a Marine would I be if I quit after one time? So it's just the beginning.
All right, Craig Haggard, thank you so much. Dustin, we're going to toss it back to you as, again, NBC News projecting Jim Baird, the incumbent, wins the primary for Congressional District 4.
All right, Alex, thank you so much. And let's go ahead and show you the numbers of what we have so far here. Jim Baird with 60% of the vote to Craig Haggard's 31%, with 48% of precincts reporting. And I want to go into Morgan County because that's where Craig Haggard lives. Looks like he's still trailing Baird 50 to 43%. Also, the Associated Press has just called the Congressional District 5 Republican primary for the incumbent Victoria Spartz. So that race is projected to be finished. Victoria Spartz over her challenger King, and then District 5, the Democrats, as we reported earlier, J.D. Ford projected to win that one. So it will be J.D. Ford and Victoria Spartz facing off in Congressional District 5 in November. All right, so we are wrapping up our coverage here on WTHR Plus, but we've got Emily Longnecker covering Congressional District 7, specifically Andre Carson, who was able to hold on to his seat for now, Jenna Webster, Congressional District 5, Alex Almanza, as you heard right there, talking with Craig Haggard. He's covering the Baird win tonight, and we will have much more coverage throughout the evening as the results continue to come in here in the Results Center and on WTHR.com.